Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. In this one, we are going to build this responsive 3 columns chat layout with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You might know this one from apps like Web WhatsApp. So we have here the left column with the chat partners or the chat items. In the middle, we have the chat messages and the right column, which can display some further information. And this this layout has 3 different states. We have the desktop view with all 3 columns. Then we have the mobile view where the left column stays in the view and the middle and the right part are switching on click. And we also have the mobile view where we only have 1 column and we can click through the app like this. As usual, you will find a link to my Git repo and to my code ban in the video description. Alright friends, so let's start by creating our project structure. We're going to need 3 files, which will be the index HTML file. Also, we are going to need a style CSS file and, of course, script JavaScript file. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to do is to add our HTML markup. So let's get this basic HTML boilerplate. And here in the head tag, we're going to link our style sheet. And below of the body, let's link our JavaScript, which will be type text JavaScript. And the source is our script.js file. Now let's test if we have linked everything correct. Simply say the body gets a background color of red. And here simply we can console log a hello world. Now let's open this inside of the browser and we see a red background, and in the console we get hello world. Now, since the files are correctly linked, we can remove the stuff here. Inside of our CSS, we can just simply remove all the paddings and margins already and set box sizing to border box. And now in our HTML file, we can start by adding our 3 columns layout. For that, let's create 3 divs. Each one of them gets a class. Left for the left column, middle for the middle column, and right for the right one. Maybe let's print this also here inside of our divs. Okay. And yeah, let's check this in our browser. We now have all 3 divs displayed in here. So now we want to create a style for that. So here in our CSS file, let's start by setting position of all 3 columns, left, middle, and right, to absolute. Top and bottom will be set to 0, so the divs will always be from the beginning to the end of your browser. The width will be 100% for the mobile view. We start mobile. And the overflow Y will be set to scroll. And yeah, to achieve later on the scroll effect or the scrolling in all 3 columns, we need to add an overflow hidden to our body. So this will prevent a vertical scrolling and also a scrolling vertical. Yeah, let's check it. Now all the divs are lying above each other. So maybe we can give them a background color, so this will be better visible. Let's add just something, middle background color white and white smoke, okay, fine. And right gets also a gray background. Now, when we check in our browser, we only see our right column. Okay, and that's totally correct. So all three divs are lying now above of each other. Maybe we can switch to the mobile view. And what we want to achieve is that the first column that we see on mobile is the left column. So this is where later on our the chat items or the chat partners will be listed, where you can click on later to enter the chat. So in order to achieve that, we need to move the middle and the right column. So let's select middle and right class. And yeah, let's just move them to the right. So let's say transform, translate X 100%. And now, if we reload the browser, we see the left column, and the middle and the right part should be somewhere in here, I guess. Perfect. And let me think. Now is the time to add some JavaScript to our website. So we can, move the middle or the right part into our view. For that, let's go into our script file. And let's first, or before we do that, we need the so-called chat items, as I called them. So here in the HTML file, let's add a new div with a class chat item. Here we simply want to display the name of your chat partner or whatsoever. And now let's copy and paste this a couple of times, so we can see that we can scroll inside of our column. For that, let's add some styling to this chat item. Let's do this here both. Let's say padding 15 pixels, 10 pixels, and let's add a border at the bottom, 1 pixel solid black. Let's see how this looks like. Okay, we have now a lot of chat items, and they are so big, so we have to scroll, okay, inside of our left column. Perfect. Now, what we want to achieve is that if we click on one of each of these items, so we want to have the middle column displayed inside of our viewport, and we want to have it smoothly slided into our viewport. So for that, we need to add some JavaScript. So basically, when we click on a chat item, we want to add a class to the middle column, which is going to be called show. This class then moves the middle part into the view. So inside of our JavaScript, let's save all the chat items inside of a const, call it chat items. And now we can say document get elements by class name. Class name is chat item. And we want to add for each chat item an event listener. To achieve that, we need to loop it through all the items. We can do this with a for loop. We say let I, so let the index start at 0, as long as the item is smaller than the chat item's length. We want to increase the index by 1. And here inside, we are adding the event listeners to each item. So we are doing this by calling chat items, passing here our index, and then we can say add event listener. We add the type click, and this function, which will be called on click, is going to say document, let's say query selector middle. So we are now fetching the middle column, and here we can call the class list and say add the class show. And that's good. Let's check this inside of our browser. We have here the div with the class middle. When we now click on one of these items, it also gets the class show. And now when the class is added, we want the style to change. So for that, back in our style sheet, down at the bottom where we have our middle class, we can add a new selector, say middle and show. so no space between. So the item has to have both classes. And maybe we can put it below here. If middle gets the class show, we want this transformation to be set to 0. And one thing we are missing is the smooth animation. For that we can add a transition called the transform property and say this has to be 0.2 seconds long. Now back to our browser, we already see the middle column, but let's reload the page and click on an item and swoosh. The middle column is sliding into our view. Perfect. Now, once this is done, we also want to move it back. So we want to close the chat. For that, let's add a button here into the middle column. In our HTML, let's add a button. Say back. This will be a back button. And here we can give this button an ID. Let's say back button. Let's copy this ID, switch back to our script. And now we have to revert this class addition. For that, we first grab our back button. So say const back button will be document get element by D, and we set it to back button. And then finally we can go and do the same thing as we did before. We add an event listener of type click, and here we call a function. This function says pretty much the same as this one, so we can copy paste this here. But instead of adding, we have to remove the class show. So back in our browser, reload the page. Now open the chat and close the chat. Perfect. So now in the middle part, there should be the chat messages. So let's maybe add some fake messages in here. Let's create a message with some lorem ipsum text. Okay, and yeah, copy and paste this a couple of times. Yeah, maybe add some basic styling here as well. Chat message. Let's add a border, 1 pixel solid black. Maybe a border radius, 10 pixels. Margin bottom, 15 pixels. Okay, we need some padding as well. And we don't want to have it full width. We want to have it like 100% minus 40 pixels. Yeah, so this is just some placeholder stuff. Let's say 3 seconds should have a margin left of 40 pixels. Oh. So now this looks like a chat, or more like a chat. Okay, so we can open up the chat, and now we want to add the third column, which will be, which will contain, I don't know, maybe the info or more informations about your chat partner. So right here in our right column, let's also add a button. No, that's wrong. We don't want to have the button in the right column. We want to have it right here in the middle, which is called info. It gets an ID info button. And in our script, we do the same as we did before. We create a const called info button, fetch it by its ID, and then we can copy and paste this function right here. So info button gets an event listener of type click, and once it's clicked, it selects the right column now and adds the class show. Let's test it again. Open up the chat. And now we have this info button here. If we click it, nothing happens. That's right. So the right column gets class show, but of course we have to edit inside of our style sheet. So here we also have to say right.show. Oops. Should transform its position. So once again, now we already see. Reload the page, click on the chat, and here we can open up the third column. And what else is missing? The close button. So let's simply add this to the right column. Once again, we add a button which is called close in here. Give it an ID, close button. And as we did before, we get our close button by its ID. It gets an event listener. So close button gets an event listener of type click, and the function will query the right column and should remove the class show. Okay, now all in all, let's check it again. We select the chat. Here we have the chat messages, and we want to open up the third column. And I did a mistake. So it's not as that easy. Yeah, of course, we have to change the ID in here. Sorry. Okay, but now I'm pretty sure it should work. Let's select the chat, open up the info, close the info, and close the chat. Perfect. So our mobile view already works as we want it to. So the next bigger step is to adjust the tablet breakpoint. So for the tablet breakpoint, let's select maybe this size, the iPad mini dimensions. And yeah, for this size, we don't want to have it 100% of width. So we want the left column to stay, so we can't close it. But the middle and the right should switch in between, right? For that, in our style sheet, add a media query, saying screen and min width, let's say 768 pixels. Okay. Here we say the left column will get a width of, let's say, 300 pixels. The middle and the right will get a width of, let's calculate 100% minus these 300 pixels, because this will always, the left column will always stay there. Okay. And also we have to set position left of these two to 300 pixels. Okay, now if we check, we still are missing our middle column. Therefore, we need to override our class up here where we say that the middle class should be transformed 100%. So we directly say transform translate x 0. Now our middle part should be visible as well as the left part. Now when we click in info, the right column appears, and on close it disappears. So now we don't need this back button here anymore for the tablet size. So we can just set display to none for the back button. So we only have the info and the close button. Perfectly. And now we can check the desktop view, and here we see that the right column is still missing. So once again, we add a new media query for a min width of 1024 pixels. And here all we need to do is to override the transform property of the right column and set transform translate x to 0. Okay. Yeah, so now it's not translated and transformed anymore. And of course, what I forgot is that we have to adjust the widths of the middle and the right column. So the right column now gets a width of 400 pixels. We can set the left to 400 as well here. And for the middle we want to be the width, a fluid width. We can simply say calculate the width 100% minus 400 from left and 400 from the right, so 800 pixels. And of course, we have to set here left to unset and right to 0. And here we set left to 400 pixels. And now this looks the way we want it to. What we still have to do is to hide these buttons, and then we should be done. So we have the close button and also the info button, which we don't need on desktop view. Say display none. And I think we're good to go. So now we can double check that again. Desktop view, tablet view, we get the info button and the close button. And if we keep on decreasing the width of our screen, the middle and the right column disappears, and we can get them by clicking on the chat items. And that's pretty much of it. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Please make sure to give this video a like and to hit the subscribe button. As usual, you will find a link to my Git repo and to my code ban in the video description.